Brilliant.
Everybody
I'll come in.
settle and put your phones on silent. Thank you. What was a tiny dream in our hearts 3 years ago has been watered patiently in the last 10 months and now turns into a beautiful, ever-going plan to collaboration, hope, and aspiration. Collaboration of 3 partner organizations and 3 crazy women with aspiration to nurture and build 100 women on boards and hope to contribute meaningfully to the social impact sector. Hello everyone, my name is Priyanka and I lead the strategic capacity building work at IIT. In New Women's sleepless nights, early morning calls, arguments, disagreements, crazy jokes, and heartfelt laughter later, here we are gathered together to celebrate 24 exceptional women who trusted us with this crazy new idea and took the plunge to be members of a very, very special founding cohort of Women on Boards program. So right now, I get goosebumps thinking about every milestone we achieved, every time we trusted each other's wisdom and believed in the vision of the program, the joy of every completed application, every interview panel we sat through, and every welcome letter that we sent. The city meets, the immersions, the tiring day-long sessions, and smiles on tired faces. I'm reminded of the 2 days in March when Aarti, Pallavi, and I logged ourselves in a room here on campus to plan out every single detail that needed to go in the selection process and the curriculum. And so much more I can go on. We have literally breathed WOP every moment in the last few months. And today I feel so humbled welcoming our very first cohort as alumni of the Women on Boards program, the flag bearers and the stalwarts. Please give a huge round of applause to all these. Nostalgic, I will invite the founder and president of Istm, Ravi Sridharan, to please come to the podium to share his story of Women on Boards. Over to you.
Very good afternoon to everybody who's come here for this lovely afternoon where we see these 24 amazing women become alumni of our Women on Boards program and start the journey. Some have already started of getting onto boards of social purpose organizations. Also, welcome to all those of you who are joining us online. And I'm sure your partners, children, family members might also be logging in. So really welcome to all of you today to ISDM. For me, this journey started somewhere in a coffee shop in northern Assam, Aarti, where both of us are equally passionate about why there needs to be more women in the social sector, why there are a lot of women in the social sector, but in fact, the majority of people are women, but tend to be in the bottom half of the sort of pyramid, if you like. As you go up that pyramid, once you reach the board, it pretty much falls off the cliff. And we were quite passionately discussing that. And we get 100 women to be on board social purpose organizations. I'm one of those guys who, for any dream, will make you believe that it's very easy to do. So my response to her, of course we can do this, you know. We have so many friends, and so I don't think she realized what she was getting into. And of course, she was supported by Pallavi and Priyanka. There are many things that are wonderful about this program from ISDM's perspective. Our students are also here. We've always believed in collaboration. We really believe that this space is about collaboration and working in partnerships. Was the whole inclusive side of space. And very proud to say how 3 organizations could get together with the same passion, engagement, involvement, and bring together a program which I think was, I say it myself, fairly high caliber program, which must have made your time that all of you gave us, and I'm sure that's precious, very, very valuable and worthwhile in the long term for yourselves. It's also hopefully going to be transformational in your own sort of personal lives in many ways, is what one thinks. But most importantly, I think you've got a circle of strength in many ways. Because one thing about getting work done in the sector is about knowing many people in the sector. And since you will be on, maybe 20 odd boards, there's already people to talk to and make things happen and so on and so forth. There's a lovely saying, you would have seen a poster, that was not me. There's a poster down there, which is a quote by Margaret Mead, which we really believe in at ISDM, which says, never underestimate the power of a small group of committed people to change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. And I cannot tell you how much that statement resonates with me when I stand here looking at all of you. And I've said this before in one of our sessions, I think this group is going to be sort of a force that's unleashed on the sector in a very powerful manner, where I genuinely think that the kind of work the sector does, the way the sector thinks, the kind of impact the sector can have, the intersectionality you bring to addressing the kind of problems that exist, I think will go to another level and thereby have a great impact. And I'm not saying this because we are in a board, convocation for all of you. I genuinely believe that when we get 100 women like you on boards of social organizations, it will be a serious force to reckon with and will have a huge impact. I have said this again before, but I feel that over time in the sort of triangle of the Samaj, Sarkar and Bazaar, the social sector has been weakened over time. The state is very powerful, the markets are very powerful. I think you have a role to play raising the bar of the social sector and bringing it onto the same level and table, if you like, of the Samaj, Sarkar and Bazaar. Because for any progressive society, the three pillars of society have to work with each other, have to be equally strong. I also think there's a lot of trust deficit that exists between these three. And I think we already will have now two legs, which is the markets and the civil society. And some of you have an understanding of the government. I think that trying to build that trust, trying to get over that trust deficit that exists so that we can achieve impact at scale can be very significant. For ISDM, this is a very, very proud moment, because we're going to be able to say that there are 24 board members who are our alums. We would have had to wait another 10, 15 years otherwise for students to reach there. So this was one fast, sort of an accelerated process. But we believe that even the work that we're trying to do at ISDM can be achieved when we have people who understand, some of the ethos of what we do, carry the messages of what we do, raise the profile of the need for professional management and not corporate management necessarily in the social sector to achieve the impact. So for ISDM, it's a very big day for us, where all of you want to be board members, you're all familiar with what we talk about, and I'm sure you'll all be well wishers for the institute and the work that we're trying to do. And that's really wonderful. I do want to wish all of you all the very best as you go on to join different boards across the country, make a huge difference, and hopefully come back and teach us, things at ISDM. So we've always believed that we co-create knowledge with our students. So all our PTP students will tell you that the process is one of co-creation. I think with you also, the process is one of co-creation. And I think in many ways, this is a journey started, but a long way to go in terms of what we can learn from each other. The other thing that we hope to do is, in the case of the PTP students, we say that it's a one-year program, but it's a lifetime of learning. I hope it's the same thing with all of you, where it might have been 3 months or sort of weekends and things like that. But I really hope this is a lifetime of exchanging, what we learn from each other. As we learn new things, we will share with you. As you learn new things, it would be great if you can share with us. Because I think that process of what Sharad and I always talk about, collective wisdom is the best and the only way really sort of build the knowledge asset, the knowledge base, the domain, if you like, of development management. Once again, like Priyanka said, thank you for trusting us on this. It's built a lot of conviction in us to see the kind of people who joined, the profile of people who joined, and I'm sure that conviction is only going to go through the roof once you start actually working and being engaged in different boards. Thank you once again, and special thanks to Poonam, who says she needs a certificate to get on the board because she's only been on some 135 boards. I said, yeah, you'll have to join the course for the next batch. I want to thank Poonam for all the support she's given ISM always, but more importantly to be here and as a representative of women on boards. I think we couldn't have thought of a better person than Poonam. So I was very thankful to Poonam for giving us the time. Thank you, Priyanka.
Poonam now, who's our guest for the day. So, as we have traveled on this marathon challenging journey, we have been incredibly lucky to have received guidance, feedback, and support from many incredible people in the ecosystem. One such is our guest speaker today, is Poonam. Just like we mentioned just now, a key supporter of this program, this initiative throughout. Poonam is the executive director of the Population Foundation of India. She has over 40 years of experience in setting up and heading NGOs, contributing to policy and advocacy, creatively building a field, organization capacity, strengthening communications for social good, promoting innovations and scaling up ideas, teaching, advising, and Ms. Matreja has co-conceived the popular transmedia initiative called Main Kuch Bhi Kar Sakti. I will achieve anything, launched by Population Foundation in 2014. Its first season, the program has introduced an artificial intelligence-powered chatbot called Istm AI, a first of its kind behavior change communication initiative. With that, welcome Poonam. May we request you to join us.
There's a place where we just create.
Sorry? Yeah, it's nice to have you. Space. And I'm also going to help myself to glass of water. Coffee. I would love a phone as a gift, but I would.
No, it's there. It's there for recording. So
That's for recording.
Oh, okay. So I can't say anything that cannot be.
You can, we can drive you.
when Poonam thought this is being live streamed, it is.
Oh, okay, I'll be very careful. You're not trolled. I'll delete all the comments that might get you and your Cohort into trouble. So good evening, and thank you for this very generous introduction. There is no speaking invitation that I have so readily accepted as this. I didn't look at my calendar. I was very clear if there was something else that has to be unprofessionally pushed out. That's not how board women and not when you have the opportunity to meet a cohort of 24 potential leaders who I hope will lead some of the work I do and the future of organizations that I'm associated with. So I don't need to say anything more about being honored, about being excited to join you today and share my thoughts and experiences. So as I read through the program that you have all experienced, I have to tell you there was a sense of envy. There was a sense of hope. Why envy? I had to struggle and learn for 40 years how to conduct myself on the boards. And you guys are on a fast track. So congratulations to ISDM, your partner Dasra, and the third partner, Governance Council, for doing this or thinking about this program. And I wanted to preface my comments first by talking about the general state of affairs when it comes to women's work and working women, because that is the context not only for all of us, but that is something that we have to think about as we sit on boards. I'll reflect on the questions of diversity, inclusion, and conclude by sharing some lessons that I have learned from observing colleagues, both men and women. I've learned a lot of what not to do from both women and men, but much more from men, if I may say so. On boards, as well as participating on board, I had the privilege of participating on boards in India and some international boards. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that too. Let me begin by contextualizing and generally setting for women's participation in the workforce, because that's at the heart of where we are, and flag 4 broad areas. So the gender gap in higher enrollment between men and women has become more balanced. Enrollment in higher universities or education the difference is negligible today at a higher level. According to the Ministry of Education Survey 2, government data also confirms that. And this was not manufactured government data. This was the good, robust government data. Female students outnumber males, as we all know, especially when it comes to bachelor's degrees, surprisingly MSc and MA too. Where nearly 2/3 of 2 amongst 3 students today are female. Of course, we have to catch up as far as engineering is concerned. There's still 70% women, men, sorry, but we'll get there, right? We'll get there very soon. 57% enrollments in MBA, we'll get there sooner. While this is in spite of the reality that for a large number of Indian women, and let's not forget those Indian women who you will be working on boards for in the social sector, large number of Indian women do not have or have very limited freedom still to pursue education, employment opportunities, and a major stumbling block remains. It might sound old-fashioned to some, but marriage continues to be a stumbling block. Early marriage has prevented women from not only joining the employment, but also education, higher education, and I'm not talking about the privileged amongst us, and even when women get a college degree, the pressure of marriage prevents many from taking a job or even leaving their education or not fulfilling the aspiration for education. Women get, even the women who get jobs, there's a good chance that many women will leave the jobs once they get married and pursue careers that aren't able to pursue careers that diminish their career prospects. Third, women's participation in the workforce in India is declining in any case over the past 3 decades, and in 2019, it stood at 20% as against the US 55%, which has 55% and 60% in China. there are only 7 countries in the world, sadly, that report lower level of female labor force participation than rates in India. This itself shows we are looking at a tiny fraction of special women, and who are 24 of them. So we don't have, the main moot point of raising this data is that the cohort is very small, because large number of women are not in the position that our contemporaries or we are in. There could be several reasons for this declining labor force participation rates in India. While some researchers point to women being pushed out of the workforce, it is becoming very difficult for women to find jobs that are close to their geographies, women with children, women with responsibility of taking care of parents, in-laws, and I find that more women take care of in-laws as well as parents than the other gender, and they're exceptional. While some researchers feel women are pushed out, while there are also researchers, and we know that there are some women who choose not to. And there are reasons for that. And I believe one of the biggest factors there is the caregiving role of women, not just the housekeeping role of women. And combined with that is the lack of responsibility that men do take. And I'm sure they've been exposed to the data on unpaid household work. So I'm not going to bore you with that, because otherwise you'll think this is another class. So I'm sure you've been through the data. And I'd like to say that one smart strategy to deal with that is choose a partner. Choose a partner or a husband, whatever shape you're thinking of the person, who is not only a responsible partner, but somebody who cares deeply about your career and your growth as much as his or hers. And second, if like a large percentage of partners or sons, thanks to the way we socialize men, we take the responsibility of socializing the men in our partnerships better. And I can tell you, I not only chose, but I also socialize and train my partner. Senior leaders can be trained in board management. ISDM's next program could be how to train partners. And we can all sign a petition or an application or a request to ISDM together. Now that I've met you, we'll work together. So they could, other also opinion that it could be out of choice that women choose not to work, especially if their husbands and families are in a position to support them financially. This we know isn't always the case. But for those women who choose to do that, we mustn't look down upon them. In fact, we must support them, and they have the time to come on to boards. So let's train them to come to boards. Those women who choose to be at home, let's find volunteer positions of that kind for them. So I believe every adversity, every situation is an opportunity. And since this is a group that talks and thinks, and this is an institute that thinks about opportunities in the social sector, let's think big, let's think out of the box. So while talking about women's work, it is critical to recognize that most women are engaged in unpaid domestic work where gender disparities are extremely high. So first of a kind survey conducted by the Ministry of Statistics, Program Implementation 2019 measures participation of women in paid and unpaid activities and reveals wide gender disparities. Now, why do I raise that? I raise that, and I'll come to it later, that is something when we go into the social sector should be a big agenda where organizations need that support, but let's create that agenda. Let's create opportunities for thinking of these issues. So I mentioned also the features about women doing more work in the house and household and caregiving, because we also have to think the organizations and boards we go on, non-profit or for profit. I think some of the issues that we have to think and raise is that of childcare, that of caregiving, of in the workplace. I mentioned also these features of, because of the burden of domestic work on women, it's almost universal in India. And you know, if you see the book that Naina Lal Kitwai wrote, where she had 10 women contribute chapters on how they maintain the work-home balance. It is something that the head of an organization to everybody grapples with, and we have much to learn from each other, but we also have to create an atmosphere, an ecosystem in the organizations where we not only sit on the board, but where we work to make it better for women. So women face other hurdles too. The International Labour Organization's Women in Business Management report ranks family responsibility, gender stereotype, and masculine corporate culture as the top 3 barriers to women's leadership. So we have, you know, there is some in our control, but some we have to still change the ecosystem, especially where it comes to corporate culture. And the top corporate culture, the masculine corporate culture that we need to change. And let me give you the bad news. A bit of it, quite a bit of it, is also in the development sector. And you know, you could be, it's not just development sector, you could be on a board, and I'll give you an example. I was on the board of India Habitat Center. So I was asked to chair a committee. This is about almost 12 or 15 years ago, when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the chair of India Habitat Center's board, and when he became the Prime Minister, we had to choose a new, he resigned, so we had to choose a new president. And I was charged with chairing that committee. And in the first meeting, one of the board members said to me, Madam, I want to put my hat. So I said, he was from the tile and brick manufacturer association. So I said, first of all, that's not how we are going to choose a president, by putting our names in the hat in a meeting where we're discussing a criteria. But I couldn't stop myself from telling him that he had broken every rule in India Habitat Center. So I said, advise me, given you've broken every rule, should you be considered? Do you fit into the criteria? So guess what he said? Jo mahila, everyone understands Hindi? Yes. जो महिला इस प्रकार की बातें करती है उसका परिवार कभी संपन्न नहीं होगा. No. But you go and feel bad for me when I tell you how I did.
What did you say?
So we had a wonderful board, and we had a very fine director of the India Habitat Center who got up physically. And I saw 3 other people get up, and I said, everybody sit down. This comment does not require, need, or is worthy of a response. Can we move to the next agenda? And I have reflected on my response. And by the way, I said it very sweetly, nicely. I didn't say it angrily or emotionally. And I think that for me was one of the most empowering experiences. And I also believe, because you know, you have to, if there is a problem on a board, 2 things, and I'll come to later, I'll give you some of my experiences of managing boards. But all I gave you that example to say, you can have an odd person here, there, even on a fine board like India Habitat Center. This is not to malign India Habitat Center. We have always had very fine board meetings, but also it is a fact that it is very hard often for men and sometimes even women in boards to see a younger person. I was then younger, 20 years younger. And it is hard sometimes to see a woman, especially in a powerful position where she is responsible for choosing the president of the board of Habitat Center. You can imagine how eminent it is if Dr. Manmohan Singh was the president then. So these are things we have to be prepared for. But I've never had an opportunity, and I'll tell you at the end of the day, except for this incident, where I've had a difficult time on boards, and I've been on boards literally sometimes since I was born. I was the executive director of 3 organizations in my 20s. So I had the opportunity of being the executive director on the board. It's an ex officio position. But let me tell you, it is very, very empowering because you learn a lot. Just sitting on a board is what I have learned a lot from. So women, another hurdle that women face is we start on an unequal terrain or often playing catch up with men. Men, there have been large number of men on boards, they've been on many boards, and women coming onto boards, and you would have, again, I'm not repeating the data, from 8% to 16%. There is an incremental increase, which we should welcome, but we are still playing catch up, while a lot of men have been sitting on boards for a long time. But of course, you're on a fast track, thanks to this program. When we enter the workforce, we do find biases of recruitment processes, common to ask women questions about their marriage and having children, which also come in the decision making. So therefore, not all women have equal opportunities to start a job and reach a position. So when I say we are doing catch up, we are doing catch up in many different ways, but I think they're doing a great job. So let's not worry about that, but let's recognize it. Through their careers, often women are paid less for the same work and susceptible to sexual harassment and find themselves excluded from many clubs. And I think that women, as the women cohort gets more, men will get chosen more. And I've seen having women not just on boards as colleagues, and I'm seeing a very welcome change in the younger generation. I see much greater participation, not just in the home, but I see much greater equality amongst the younger generation. And I'd like to imagine that you and your partners and your friends are in that generation. Allow me to indulge in that. So it comes as no surprise that women are constantly weeded out of contentions of leadership positions is a reality. So I also raise that issue because when we are on boards, I think we have to pay special attention to that, and I always have. Women also pay a higher personal price to become board members, again, given that their role in the house responsibility, in the house and family caregiving and other expectations in families takes away time which men may have for investing in preparation for the boards. Thus, let me point out to some good news. Indian women are faring reasonably well if you look at politics, and so are women internationally. So let's not be inspired by just the Indian situation. Let's be inspired by the 7 women who led the world in their country, 7 women leaders, and did much better on COVID than the rest of the world. And you know the countries I'm referring to: women heads of governments in Denmark, Ethiopia, Finland, Germany, Iceland, New Zealand, and Slovakia were recognized not only for their rapidity of COVID-19 appropriate response, but also the transparent and compassionate communication of fact-based public health information. The leadership styles of women leaders during COVID-19 response have been described as more collective than individual, more collaborative than competitive, and more coaching than commanding. And these three are lessons for all of us as we go on board: more coaching than commanding, more collaborative than competitive, more collective than individual. These give us very good clues to be effective board members, and I'm going to say leaders, because I hope and trust that many of you will be not just on boards, but chairing boards. It is worth noting that in 2019, before the pandemic, nearly half of the world's population, 47%, believed that men made better political leaders than women. So when we go into India becoming 100, 1947, I say with a lot of assertion, responsibility, and confidence that the same will be said about women board members. I wanted to highlight some of these features that shape women's work in India, only to say that many of these features apply to varying degrees to all of us. To women who are fortunate like us to have had not just the luck, but the determination, along with a little bit of luck, to have fought against all odds and reach positions in professional lives, and they're exploring opportunities to work, to join boards. And I hope you will be joining not just not-profits, you will also be joining major boards in the for-profit sector to create the changes that we wish to for women. Let me give my second segment of the presentation where I'm going to reflect on increasing the participation of women in boards. There is no doubt that inducting women in boards is essential, not just for diversity, but for a range of reasons. And you all know about the Companies Act, and I'm not going to go into that. And according to the report by Deloitte, I'm familiar with the report by Deloitte, women hold 17% only of board positions, board seats in the corporate sector in India. The numbers are worse when it comes to board chairs. Only 3.6% women of boards have women chairpersons. And in 2022, a research report by Professor Pramila Agarwal of IIM Ahmedabad, titled The Glass Ceiling, that looks at leadership gender balance in NSE 200 companies, reveals that at the top level, the proportion of directors in NSE 500 companies has increased from 4.5% in 2014 to 16% in 2020. And that also due to regulatory requirements, not because it happened organically. Interestingly, the report notes that the percentage of women at the top at the board has not yet resulted in a significant increase in percentage of women in top positions. So that's another thing to keep in mind. As a result of the affirmative action, while we can ensure diversity, there are only 5% women on top management positions and 7% women in senior executive positions. So the development sector, by the way, is no stranger to gender inequality. Even though our work is often about gender, ensuring protecting women's rights. For years, women have had low representation on development boards. So why do we continue to see such stark contrasts between men and women in leadership positions, also in the social sector, where we are supposed to be working in many of the institutions on gender empowerment and equality? My suspicion is that the male domination and lack of adequate representation of women might be even higher, despite the greater awareness of gender discrimination and gender equalities, and that's why perhaps these three partners did come together, I'm sure. I must, however, add that my experience with female board members is mixed. Let's not make the assumption that because we are women, we have to, that we don't always emulate men, or individually, we don't always. So there's a huge responsibility on us not to emulate men or women whose conduct or whose style in boards is not something that is something I'd like to flag. And I'm sure this course has done enough to share with you best practices or smart strategies. But if I may add smart strategies. So ensuring inclusion is very important. While diversity and inclusion may be interconnected, they are not the same. Diversity is only counting numbers. Inclusiveness is making numbers come out. Inclusion refers to practice of making all members of the organization feel comfortable, welcomed. It is about making everyone feel confident. It is about giving everyone equal opportunity to connect as well as to contribute. Boards need to improve on both dimensions, diversity and inclusion. And although boards say they like diversity, most women directors are often only. Adequate representation of women's voice in leadership positions needs to go beyond tokenism. Diversity and inclusion are important in themselves, but they also have an instrumental value to ensure that organizations are on the right track and moving at the right pace to achieve goals and their missions. So, and this is where Indian boards often fall short. This has much to do with the culture of the organization as well as the culture of the board. Some issues and flags that I'd like to raise here are on many boards, fixed board terms are not there. Members never retire. Membership is based on some hidden, undisclosed criteria, but men seem to get a major share in that criteria. Boards do not take advantage often of diversity to make diverse boards more effective and egalitarian. Boards often tend to be hierarchical. Board members do not realize often that their job is not to run organizations. And that's a lesson I not only learned, but I've tried to practice. The relationship between board members and CEO is often not also clear. And I think it's very important to be an effective board member, not only to function in terms of the board governance, but also understand the workings of the organization, not just the roles and responsibility, but where needed, be there. And I always go into a board with 3 or 4 perceptions. First, I'm not going there as a woman. I'm going there as a professional, a person. Number 2, that we are supposed to be supporting the staff, the CEO, in their weaknesses and strengths. Going into a board with the arrogance that we lord over the staff and the CEO is, I believe, not an effective, smart strategy. Board settings often don't have assessments of boards. I always encourage committees, executive, other committees on boards, but I also encourage assessment of boards. So when I walked into PFI, I was told I might just get sacked because the first thing I did was board governance. I think these things really help us be better board members and helps board. And people might get upset with you in the short run, but in the long run, you will grow, you will contribute. Finally, making organizations sensitive to women's extra burdens at home and family is essential. They need to be generous in terms of flexible timings and arrangements. Hopefully the COVID pandemic has taught us and also has created opportunities for both online and offline. So how do you maximize your contribution as a board member? First, I mean, these are things you know, but allow me to reiterate what has helped me. Prepare well for every board meeting. You have a caregiving role, spend the midnight oil, but prepare for the board meeting. Read the board papers thoroughly, not simply skim through them. It's not good enough. Look at the financials as well. Many of us gloss over the finances and only look at the program. Look at well-being of the staff as a priority. If necessary, ask for pre-board discussions, meetings, clarifications. How do you analyze the opportunities for yourself when you are entering those positions? I'd say contribute by identifying a challenge and discuss how you can contribute to addressing it. Raising an issue, a challenge, and a problem without a solution, I would say, is not a smart. Extend support to the board committee. You may not be on a board committee, but if you can add to it, do it. Extend support to staff committees without, as I said, being on it. How can we work out personal strategies for our own careers? I'd say choose to join a board of an organization whose work and issues you're familiar with to begin with. And you will find the confidence, experience that you get in boards where you know the issues. That once you get the experience, you can go to any board. Examine the vision and ask yourself the question, how can I add value? Assess your competencies. Strategy is your competency, strategy, fundraising, OD, and offer to support that part of the organization. Pick your battles. Don't take every battle as yours. Never miss an opportunity to flag and highlight comments members may make which are not appropriate and in the right spirit, but do it politely with grace and not confrontation, and leave emotion at home. Women are often accused of being emotional. So when men are emotional, nobody comments. But if a woman brings emotional for the right reason or is emotional, so we have to deal with these stereotypes and turn them around. Getting emotional is a no-no, especially, as I said, given the stereotyping. Finally, it is when it comes to social sector and development organizations, we need to ask, what proportion of women are Muslims? Not just having women is not enough. What proportion of the women are from Dalit communities? What proportion of the women women directors represent communities that the organizations work for? If we are working with adolescents or if we are working with sex workers, do we have some of them on our board? Or when not just one of them, some of them. What proportion of women represent below 50? How many of you are above 50? None. 2. So close to 50. So we have to ask that question. We need younger women on boards, and 50 and 55 is done. I just took a cut off. Finally, in conclusion, I'd like to say that the advancement of women in leadership and management is integral to the growth of an organization. The evolution of labor markets, the high educational skill level of women, and their growing role in the growth and development of nations. Women today hold a wealth of talent and resources. At the same time, organizations need to play a key role in advancing women in the workplace and ensuring greater flexibility and gender parity at the board level. Also do remember that we have an obligation to facilitate systems and structural transformations in our organizations so that more women leaders can step in and become change agents. As women, we must be determined to only move forward. There is no place, there is no route and road for us moving backwards. I end with a huge sense of excitement that you all will contribute significantly and fill the huge yawning gap. When India turns 100 in 1947, this program to train more leaders must become dispensable. They all have to be out of jobs. Perhaps we will still need to train men to compete and catch up with women. Thank you.
So much, Poonam, for sharing your wisdom with us, all of us present here. And now is probably the most awaited moment, the graduation ceremony. So I request Poonam once again to join us on the stage, along with Aarti to hand over the certificate.
No, I don't have certificate. No.
I request the cohort members, as they announce names, to please enter the stage from this side and exit from this
That's the way.
Otherwise,
You want edit kara de.
please edit.
Some edit. Atim is here. We have an in-house editor now.
Let's start that.
Wants a certificate.
Can be on boards but don't know where to stand.
Okay, we'll begin. I'm Rupa Pereira.
Okay, women.
And the certificate.
Certificate.
Deep Kaur.
Was getting obsolete very soon.
Manisha Mehta. Rajni Kohli.
You.
Sadhma Parthasari. Yeah. I know what the part is.
How do I? It's not just a male domain. So it's-
Pallavi Manoj.
Minor milestone. Don't say so. Don't say that.
Yes.
Rajni Surendra Bhatt. Rani Shashi Kumar. Shilpa Kohli. Steve Chaudhary.
Lena's also the director of us. Traffic director of a group.
And last but not least.
Hold it, bro. Okay.
We also have 3 more cohort members, Neeta, Smita, and Vishali, who couldn't be present with us today for personal emergencies. We really miss you. And congratulations to the three of you. Thank you, Poonam and Aarti, for round of congratulations to the that have not been able to make it today. Being a part of Dasra, which is one of the partners. Over the past year or so, have you seen a lot about being about children? I feel like this program has really brought it all together for us, and it's a good beginning. It's definitely not perfect, but it's a good beginning to the aspiration of the government. Just wanted to share. Now that we've heard from all the partners, heard from, I think it's important to also hear from the cohort, right? So we would like to hear some stories and experiences from the cohort itself. And for that, we have Shruti Chaudhary and Pallavi. Sharing about their stories throughout this program. So over to you, Shruti and Pallavi.
Thank you. So we thought we'd make this a conversation. And so thank you for indulging us for the next 5 minutes. Hi, Shruti. Hi, Pallavi. So first, Shruti, tell me, why did you join the Women on Boards program?
So I've been part of construction, real estate design, the corporate sector for 19 years. And I was constantly, thinking of doing something, but never, not lack of intent, but probably lack of opportunity, time. I needed that push. And a friend of mine, Nandita, recommended this program to me. And it all fell into place. I said, this is a safe way to start, right? Not getting too many of my fingers in, which we learned later on was a very important aspect. And yeah, so here I am. What about you, Pallavi? What are your expectations from this program?
Yeah. So let me tell you, at the outset, I was like really super confident. I mean, after all, I've done my MBA. I've worked for over 20 years. So, I'd be like really able to help all the non-profit organizations. Right. As soon as I join, I can see myself really contributing. But I must admit, I believe many of us in the cohort were a little naive. And we've come to realize that these organizations have a lot to teach us. And maybe I should look and listen and learn first. And now the feeling that I've left behind is I'm hoping to serve in whatever capacity I can make myself. I'd like to make myself. Lovely. So, but what has been the key revelation for you?
One is like impossible, right? There are so many epiphany moments we had on this journey. So right from the start, I think we were a little know-it-alls in some ways. And there was a realization that, gosh, this is a sector we know nothing about, except even the ones working within the sector, because we see it from a very different lens and a different worldview. It was overwhelming. It was reiterating also why we chose to be part of this journey and what a landing of our egos it's been on so many levels. So yeah, it was also knowing, like Ravi very, very clearly told us, that you will not have all the answers and it's all right. So I think learning to be all right with that was a huge revelation.
That's right. And that was a very wise comment, because we've always been trained to have an answer. And so that was a real relief. But
so what was the journey like, if I may ask you, through the modules 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, right. So it was quite a journey for us, and I'm glad you spaced it out over time for us to absorb it in bits and pieces. Otherwise, just imagine. So the first part of our journey was very much about understanding some very complex problems, wicked problems as we termed it. And I think a lot of us felt, at least I felt, very overwhelmed. The numbers seem to suggest that the problem, and the problem is very large. So the overwhelming question was, would I be even able to contribute, or would I be able to even make a difference? So that was the first feeling. As we progressed across the weeks, we learned a lot of things, and some of the terminologies on systems thinking, the role of a social purpose organization and why the important role that it has, the passion that founders bring to the table, and then of course comes the role of the board and how to manage conflict. And so as we learned a little bit more about this, I think I grew a little bit more confident. I started overwhelmed, and then I think it provided us a lot of the tools.
Not saying those gin and tonics didn't help.
So the gin and tonics
Yeah,
and
they
the coffee.
helped.
And the
Yeah,
coffee,
yeah.
So we learned to be a little bit more confident, and how we can be more engaged, more supportive, and a sounding board if possible.
Yeah, like Sonal very well put it, right? We don't have to wait till 60 now and start an NGO.
Correct. How could we in our
arthritis. Exactly. In arthritis.
But what has the Women's on Board program brought for you?
I think Priyanka, we were having a conversation with her last night, and Ravi mentioned it too today about the circle of strength.
Yeah.
And the power of collective conversations of this cohort. It has been extremely humbling and enriching. And obviously the term we've used the most, any guesses? Open fingers out. Yeah. And I think yesterday's conversation with the three female, founders of such young organizations doing such amazing kind of work, she ended it very beautifully. If you have privilege, use that power. And I mean, she says, you don't have to say, oh, I'm privileged, what do I do, and be shy about it, which has actually stayed with me, that use it for purpose unabashedly. And listen.
Yeah.
Understand the ground reality.
Before you jump in.
Exactly.
Before the action impulse.
Yes, before the action impulse, which so many of us suffer with.
Yeah.
And I think the largest and the most impactful line for me was, be a compass, not a map.
And I wanted to add to that, we've over this time period gained a lot of friends, mentors, collaborators, and that I know will last with us for a lifetime. And also, I think we intend to we personally believe in this program individually. We intend to spread the word so that you have a lot of new cohort members from our circles of influence. So I think you'll hopefully get much better team members the next time round. And most importantly, a big thank you to Aarti, to Pallavi, to Priyanka, and our ISTM staff who've been, really supportive and
volunteers,
professionals. And yes, the entire Women's on Board program. So thank you on behalf of all of us. Thanks a lot.
Jonathan didn't get a mention.
Well, with this, we come to an end, to a beautiful new beginning. But no end without having one very, very special person come up to the podium and share a few words. The heart and the mind and the hands behind the program, Aarti Madhusudan. Thomas is only so much I want to give you from tea. I want to start by first thanking Udam. What an inspiring address. It stayed with me. It moved all of us, I think. Thank you so very much. I think it's a story I think many of us would have heard, but I love repeating it as often as I get a chance to. There's this young man walking down the street and he sees a very, very old, infirm, ill beggar by the side, and he feels extremely moved and upset when he sees this man, and he looks up in desperation and says, "Oh God, why are you not doing something about this guy?" And he has a voice, so told, "I have done something about it, I made you."
Wow.
And I think to me, you are the living proof of that voice. You know, I don't want to say I'm the voice of God. But I want to start by thanking, 24 wonderful, wonderful people who come into this journey, who kicked us off, and hopefully will help us make this, number 100 become 1,000. So I'm thinking not we'll stop at 100, but odd to be thanking ISTM and Tasra, because I'm like, hey, I'm part of you guys, and am I thanking myself? But a little bit of narcissism in me, so yes, it's just been wonderful, wonderful for us to collaborate. If people often say, oh, non-profit sector mein collaboration hota nahi, everybody's talking about it. It was just so beautiful and seamless, and honestly, touch wood. We didn't have a single moment of any kind of negative, instance at all, right through the 10 months. I like to believe it's because I'm a wonderful person. But no, honestly, hand on heart, I think it was just fantastic. We just got on, and wonderful that two organizations have provided the institutional framework for the beginning of this, and I think we're going to really do wonders. The student volunteers quietly, silently help. That put everything together. To take this opportunity to really thank, and I mean this very sincerely, no joke, thank Priyanka and Pallavi for the kind of knowledge. That's fine, I know that. But no, honestly, I've often thought that I don't think I can work with people. So one of the reasons I never set up an organization was the sheer fear that I won't be able to work with people, and people won't be able to work with me, right? And they've proven me wrong after a little too late, but it's okay, maybe. But really, honestly, thank you so much for being who you are, and it's just been wonderful, wonderful. Pooja, please stand up. What a party moment. So thank you so much, Pooja.
No one's thanking the men.
They're probably thanking themselves inside. Thank you so much, Aarti.
Thank you,
Don't get emotional. Monday morning, 9 o'clock.
I know.
We were planning for the next cohort. But really, no, thank you so much, everybody, for being with us today on a Saturday evening.
That's when you start.
Really, really grateful. Don't take any more time of yours. Tea and some snacks are waiting for us on 5th floor. Please, please, please do join us. Congratulations.
Okay.
I'm looking like I want one photo.